So this is the third part, the second part of or the second theme of part 3. Alright? In the last unit, we looked at ways of preparing a talk on a topic at place where you want to. So we'll continue. We will go back to page 107, which is this, right? Or let's continue here. They're all linked broadly to the topic of housing and the way we live. They can be divided into 3 sub-themes. In the speaking test, there will be 2. Alright, again, this book is a bit old. So, 4 main or 4 topics in the second part, and 2 in the third. Not 3 and 3, 4 and 2. Work and housing, architecture, housing, the state, and the state. Read the questions and see which of the 3 subtopics the questions belong to. First one has been done for you. So, we have work and housing. I'll just mark this one as 1. Architecture is 2, and housing and the state is 3. Alright? In the next page, or the next slide, we will be presented with these questions. Of course, they have been answered for us, so let's just read. Is it a good idea for people to work from home? So it's the first one, of course. Alright? That work and housing. Housing in relation to work. So work from home, or have a job next to your home, or far away from your home, so on. Would you prefer to live in a house or an apartment? Okay? This is the second topic. Architecture. Alright? We're talking about the home itself. Alright? House is a large place you live that's outside the city, that has a bit 2 floors and I think more than 3 or 3 rooms. What are the disadvantages of commuting long distances to work? Commuting is using transport to go somewhere. Using transport to go somewhere. It can be a car, a bus, a train, or any other type of transport. It can be personally owned or public. Should the state provide cheap housing for the low income, earners? State. That's it. Do you think architects pay more attention to the appearance of buildings than the basic requirement of shelters? So they would build a very nice looking building, but it doesn't have as many flats, or it cannot house as many people. What can be done to help people who are homeless? What can the state do, and what can you personally do? To what extent does climate determine the kind of houses we build? So talk about the material, maybe the isolation, or and so on. Alright? Maybe you can even say something about the price of houses. Many people in the European and American nations love a penthouse. Alright? Because it's very large, it can even have its own park, and so on. But we hate penthouses because they are closest, or they are the ones that are most exposed to the sun, and that means that they are the ones that will be the hottest. Take a pic. To develop a response, okay, when you hear the question, okay, hear all the types of, or the styles, okay, by which you hear the question. Please excuse me for a moment here. Okay, so when you hear the question, try to hear all of the styles by which this question, okay, are being asked. For example, is it the responsibility of the government to provide homes for poor people? Okay, here it was This one, should the state provide cheap housing for low-income earners? Or what can be done to help people who are homeless? You can hear it. What should the government do to provide homes for the homeless or for poor people? Or, so what can we do? What can the government do? What can the rich businessmen do? So on. Alright. Please excuse me for a moment. I'll take just a small break and then get back to you. This is a break at Alright then, we have about 15 minutes left. We'll make the most use of them. We just have 3 slides anyway. So, in the third part again, you will be asked about a broader topic than the one you were talking about in the second part. In the second part, you were talking about a personal experience regarding a specific topic, something like a supermarket that you liked, or an inspiring person, or a person in your family that you found inspiring. Okay? The general, or the third part, will be talking about a general theme regarding that takes what you have been saying in a broader sense. So if you have said something about an influential family member or an inspiring family member, they'll ask you questions about the effect of family, the effects of family on each other. And then the second theme could be the effects of friends, or how friends affect each other. So, when you are asked one of the questions, it's always good to try and imagine the question in other words. Right? This will help you understand the keywords. Okay? This is what's meant by explorer issues. Government help poor people. Should government help poor people? Should governments help poor people by giving them homes? So whether any of the keywords would raise new questions. How do we define a poor person? What kind of things should the government be responsible for? So, poor is a bit of a broad word. You can't start defining what a poor person looks like. Is he someone who earns less than $5,000 a year? Is he someone who cannot buy luxury foods, or can only buy the barest essentials for survival? All of these are questions that can also be answered while you are answering the question. Do you have any real views on the situation? What are they? Make sure you give 2 reasons, 2 good reasons to back up your opinion, or to back your opinion. Everyone has a right to a place to live. It's the role of government to provide shelter for people. It doesn't have to be 2 reasons, but try your best to justify your answer with examples of your personal life, or with a logical statement. Try to use logic in your answer. Of course, if you do not have this proof, alright, just say these words. Begin your answer with the words I think or I don't think so. I think it's important for your government to provide homes for poor people, because money should not be a primary thing in today's societies. It seems nowadays that money runs everything, and governments take money from its people in the form of tax, specifically to help those in need. And one of the methods that we must help those, shall we say, unlucky souls is to provide adequate housing for them. I believe nursing is a profession for dedicated people. I have seen many nurses that lots of things to, or that would sacrifice a lot for their job. They need to memorize maybe, or they need to learn more and more about their patients, and they take crash courses every 6 months about how to use needles and maybe how to and so on. And so, as far as I can see, one requirement for being a politician is to have a very thick skin. Is to have a very thick skin. By the way, having a thick skin means you do not respond harshly to insults. If you are talking about the politics or the economics in your country and someone suddenly comes out of the blue, out of nowhere and says you're a jackass, ahmar, of course you don't think about it. This is having a thick skin, not to be offended easily. I would say that good computer programmers are usually good mathematicians. I would think that a lawyer needs to be a fast reader. I wouldn't recommend this one. Just say I think that, right? Just say I think that. You can say I would think that a lawyer needs to be a fast reader, but I have already met lawyers who are who read slowly. Right? So in an imaginary situation. In an imaginary situation. Yeah, I would think that's something. Now let's take a look at a possible response. Of course, your response again needs to have a topic sentence, a main idea, and a supporting idea. I'm sorry, but every single thing we say needs to have a main idea and a supporting statement. Sorry. Try reading them out loud to make them come alive. With practice, you will see that to use your English fluency to develop these two types of sentences in quick succession. You'll see this example here. Try reading them out loud to make them come alive. All right, make them come alive. There's something very important that I have almost forgotten. Intonation. Intonation. You have to make a tone of your voice. You have to provide a very colored tone. You can read it like this. Let's read the first one. Well, yes, I do. I think that the government of the state should provide cheap housing for people who don't earn very much money, because if we don't do this, they may end up sleeping in the street or in the park, and this will only reflect very badly on society as a whole. This is a monotonous answer. Try your best to intonate your answer to make high and low points where you think it's very important. Well, yes, I do. I think that the government or the state should provide cheap housing for people who don't earn very much money. Because if we don't do this, they may end up sleeping in the street or in the park, and this will only reflect very badly on the society as a whole. You can see here that I have stressed cheap housing, very much money. If you don't do this, you may end up sleeping in the street or in the park. The other one, I feel responsibility of the government to provide housing, just as they should provide education and ideally health services. That's one of the reasons why we pay our taxes. So this is a way of intonating your answer. Of course, intonation is the key word in all of your speaking activities. Okay? In all of the 3 points. I think you won't be able to intonate very well in the first task, but as you break the ice, you will feel that it's becoming easier and easier. And finally, let's take a look at some practice. Okay, the job that you feel enjoying, that you are enjoying, we'll talk about employment overall. Okay? Now, let's see here. Try to think of some more questions that would ask in order to explore the topic. Remember, let's refer to some of the questions here. Just a moment. Please excuse me for a moment. I'll just take a look at here. Yeah, of course, the questions here are usually yes/no questions and WH questions. The guidelines are simply the grammatical or the grammatically correct ways to answering to asking questions, whether WH or closing questions yes/no. Let's take a look at the first one. What's the difference between a job and a career? Okay. Footballer should earn more than a nurse? Is there a difference between education and training? Maybe what other questions can you think about? Should experience be the main requirement in a job interview or for a job? Right? This is a close-ended question. So when you answer it, try to justify your reason. Yes, it should be the main requirement because there are many jobs out there that require employees on the spot. Sometimes a person in this company would be sick or would maybe need to go to another nation, so he would resign. يستقيل. Alright? Which means that another one needs to fill in his place in as short a time as possible. So you didn't just answer yes, no. You need to follow up. What else? What's the difference between job and career and so on? Are their jobs? Are there only jobs that only specific people can do? So, is every job out there capable of being done by everyone? Something like a salesman. I have tried being a salesman, but I'm not a good person in sales. I cannot sell water to a person dying of thirst in a desert. Anyway. Are the jobs that only specific people. So a salesman needs to have a magical sort of personality to be able to appear nice in front of the person or to the person in front of him and to be able to convince him of the item being sold. What about maybe which jobs need the most training? Which jobs need the most training? Does working as a nurse need to have more training as, say, working as a footballer, maybe? Which one needs more training? Of course, is it right that a footballer should earn more than a nurse? When you answer this question, think of how much more is a footballer earning. So you can provide an example. I think I'm not very good in football, I'm pretty sure that many football players are being transferred from one club to the other for more than $60 million or so, while a nurse's salary could be anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000 a year, maybe in a hospital. $20,000, $30,000, or perhaps a bit more. Okay, maybe 30 to 40. Okay. So, as you understand the question in more details, you'll find that you can answer more, or you can expand more and more on the question. So, when someone says footballer should earn more than a nurse, try to understand what more means. And this can be used to provide the example. So you can answer this question by saying, well, last time I heard a footballer, or last time I heard that a footballer was being paid over $2.5 year just to play for his club. And one of my friend's sister works as a nurse, and she only earns $30,000 a year. This is absolutely unfair in my opinion, especially since a nurse's job is way more important than a footballer's, and this means that we are simply, shall we say, insulting those people who work for the better good in favor of those who just are getting paid to play, essentially. Is there a difference between education and training? What's education? It's what's education? It's learning that you do as a young person. And training is learning that you do as a professional, maybe? You can say that, so you can simply say that, okay, I don't know the difference exactly between education and training, but if I had to guess, I would say that education is what you do as a student in a school. You don't learn about a specific skill, like welding or maybe working on a lathe or nursing. You're just learning something in general. Learning a new language, knowing more about the sciences and all that. Right? About science and all that. What about training? But whereas training, I think, is more concerned with the job you currently have. So let's say I'm an English teacher, so I need some training in the better methods and skills of teaching, or the different backgrounds of the people that I expect to teach within the next 5 years. Okay, so I know that I'll have some maybe Japanese and Saudi Arabian students, maybe Kuwaitis or Turkish students. Okay, of course I need to have more background knowledge of these. Okay, so this is a very specific point in my career, in my profession, which is why I need training, not education. And finally, a job is, well, it's your occupation. It's what you do right now. But a career is your life as a professional. It's your entire history of work and the skills associated with it. Which jobs need the most training? Okay, if we understand training as the jobs that have that require the most specific skills, I would say someone like maybe a call center agent, someone who needs to answer your call and address your problems as quickly as possible, needs to have a course in communication skills, needs to have a course in using the computer in front of him, or typing course, or maybe a course in handling angry customers. Should experience be the main requirement for a job? Well, it's up to you, right? Of course, you can say that, okay, of course experience should be the main requirement, but at the same time, alternatives should be provided for fresh graduates so that they can earn this experience over time. They can be interns until they have 1 or 2 years of experience, enough to have a real job. Are there jobs that only specific people can do? All right, okay, football players need a special type of talent to do their job very well, which is why they're getting paid a lot. Okay? So this is the test overall. Okay? I'm going to recap the main points in the listening before ending session 9. The main point in the first task, of course, the most important thing in the speaking test is to relax. Do not be very anxious. Do not be is on your side. To help you do this. Okay? So the most useful situation, of course, it has to be different dates, different time, paper-based tests, so the stress factor is when you begin, the first part is simply to break the ice. I have provided you with some of the many topics, or lots of topics, of course there are many more out there, but the more topics you prepare for, is it for you to be asked in a topic about yourself that you don't know, right? So read as much as you can in the past papers, past tests, so that you can collect as many information about yourself to answer this first test. So the first part is simply you knowing more about yourself. The second part needs a minute for preparation, or 2 minutes for speaking. As I said, you need to learn to expand on the topics so that every question you are being asked in this piece of paper, okay, try to expand on it, try to answer as many angles as possible. And if you do this quickly enough, you should have enough time to answer or make up additional questions, okay, and answer them later. Make sure to answer these additional questions after you have answered the original ones. Right? You will only be marked for the original ones and not repeat them. So if you answer the original ones, then you go on the other questions, you are very likely to gain a very good mark. And the third one is follow-up. Of course, there are follow-up questions to the second task. Okay? Answer them yes or no. And I think I'm sure you've already learned how to provide a full answer. Use the auxiliary. Yes, I am. No, he hasn't. So the third part is for you to focus on giving almost complete answers. Right? I'm not going to use these words, not exactly descriptive. Try to address all aspects of the question. First, understand what the question is trying to ask. It's not a flaw to ask the examiner to ask you the question again. All right? You can simply tell, okay, can you please repeat that question? I didn't get that one. All right? Don't say what. Don't say what. Just say, I didn't get that. Could you please repeat? Then understand the question completely. Understand every aspect of it and project what you would expect the answer, or what answer the examiner would want. For example, here, someone says more than a nurse. Maybe you can translate it to nurse. And then, while answering, always give justification for your answer. Even if it was, I don't know. So this concludes our speaking module, and indeed the entire course. We only have one session left, and this is designed for general practice. I will open a test, okay, and address some of the points written there. I will try to choose some of the harder tests that I have experienced as an IELTS instructor, and I will show you the more difficult points there and how to overcome. But until then, I hope I wish you all well, and until next time, I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. Okay. This is the camera. If you saw me. If you didn't, I hope I see you soon in session 10. Until then, you take care.